Look around. America is divided between success and failure, with government and corporations picking winners and losers, rigging the system against people, creating a two-tiered society with policies that fail our most vulnerable, dooming many of our poor to an unjust cycle of incarceration, stacking the deck against businesses that don't get subsidies and tax breaks. We could do so much better. We could reform our legal system and free young minds to reach their potential. With an end to red tape and excessive regulations, innovation would flourish. America could be open for business again. At Coke, we believe it's time to remove the barriers, to end the divide, to replace winner-take-all with a system where we all can win. Learn more at endthedivide.com.
For a conversation about the HR case for social good, please welcome Erin Moran, the Chief Culture Officer at Union Square Hospitality Group, and Adrienne Gemperle, the Chief People Officer at SoulCycle. Here to lead the conversation is the Atlantic's Jillian White.
All right. So I actually want to start there. Chief Culture Officer, Chief People Officer. Those are not titles you hear every day. Nope. Erin, I want to start with you. Can you explain what that title looks like in an actual company?
Sure. And even my kids and my parents have absolutely no idea what that means. But essentially, I oversee all of the traditional HR functions, but we intentionally made a decision to call the function culture because it is more important the output as a result of the transactional responsibilities. And we have a philosophy about how we run our business, which is what is most important is the employee experience. And when our employees are feeling really inspired, really taken care of, really respected, then they have that kind of soulful energy to create those amazing experiences for our guests. So that's what I'm responsible for.
Adrienne, Chief People Officer.
Chief People Officer. You know, this stems from so many conversations I've had with employees over the years where you come into the company or you come into your job and someone brave enough will ask you, is it about humans as resources or is it resources for humans? And it kind of comes together with a little bit of a transactional or maybe a negative stigma to it. And so really the role really is to serve people. And in a business like SoulCycle, you know, SoulCycle is premised on being very human. It's a human experience that happens in a candlelit room under the premise that fitness can be fun, it should be simple, and it should be the best hospitality out there. And so the role of the Chief People Officer is really working with all of the people in the company and all of the communities we serve to have that very human experience come to life.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's interesting is a few years ago, if I had said these titles or talked about the idea of HR making culture kind of paramount to what a company is doing, I think there were a lot of CEOs who I interviewed normally who kind of scoffed at it and thought it was kind of this millennial hippy-dippy thing and didn't necessarily see the value in it. So I'm wondering, do you guys think that that has changed by and large in the industries that you work in, and also when it comes to just HR in general? Has that changed? Erin?
I definitely do think it has changed, and I think it's as a result of the really strong business case behind investing in your people first, and not instead of guests or customers, but in order to create that more powerful, inspiring experience for your guests or for your customers or for your clients. And the financial returns, just using one data point as an example of the publicly traded companies on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for list that are recognized as great companies, as great cultures, they outperform the S&P by a 3-to-1 ratio. So there's an incredibly strong business case around focusing on culture, and I think that is really driving the conversation now.
Yeah. Adrienne, I'm wondering if you agree with that. Also, SoulCycle, I feel like kind of the idea and the premise behind that founding was the originator here. Do you see a lot of more traditional companies kind of now copying or buying into that ethos?
I do. I think there's a movement, and I think it's anchored in data, and the research, I think, is overwhelming. I mean, it's hard to think through, particularly maybe because I'm not one, that millennials now make up over half of the US workforce.
Yeah.
And the research, I think the 2018 Deloitte Human Capital survey has put some really good information out there. We learned from Cyber Grants that 77% of millennials stay at and are choosing the companies that they are participating in based on feeling like the company has a purpose and wants to stand for something that makes the human experience better. Employees stay longer. I think the Deloitte survey said 38% of employees will stay 5 years or longer if they feel connected to the company's purpose or mission and they believe authentically that the company is committed to doing good. And I've worked in companies where I think, a lot of it stems from the top. And in an experiential business, kind of one of the sayings that I'm a believer in is that the guest experience or the customer or rider experience can never exceed the employee experience, because that's really what sets the tone for what's delivered, whether it's in the candlelit room or over a delicious meal. So I think there is a movement afoot, and it's anchored in research, and then I think practical conversations that you have in the workplace with the people you're supporting.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about those practical conversations, and I'm wondering, what are the questions when you guys are doing interviews? Are you guys getting questions about the culture of a place, and how are you then responding to them, and how are you kind of selling the culture, and who are you getting those questions from, Erin?
So we actually try not to sell the culture, as strange as that might sound. We try to describe very realistically what to expect and what is expected of people that are joining the company, because we don't want people to think that they're walking into, am I breaking up?
Can we get a handheld mic? You can
try to get
go ahead.
So we don't want people to think that they're walking into a nirvana where this beautiful culture will be bestowed upon them. Thank you. We want our people to understand that when they receive the invitation to join our organization, they are immediately part of the culture, and there are very specific expectations that we have of our team members for how to positively contribute to the culture. And so we don't want to oversell it. We want to be exceedingly clear on what they will be expected to do to contribute to the culture, so that they are understanding that they just won't be benevolent recipients of this culture.
Yeah. And Adrienne, are you guys actively selling the SoulCycle culture, or is it kind of a similar model?
I think we definitely, culture is such a significant part of SoulCycle. And so when we interview, which we interview and hire very thoughtfully, we always have somebody on our interview loop or panel that is really looking at alignment with the values as well as skills and experience. When we're looking at kind of the magic that happens in the room, it's less about the instructor's experience more than their aptitude, or really how they're going to thoughtfully engage with the community of riders. So we want people to understand what it is, but we also do believe that it can be a huge part of what makes working for SoulCycle fun. And so we definitely want to be front-footed with what we stand for, our purpose, which is we move people to move the world. We want people to feel inspired by it. So we're definitely leaning into explaining what culture is at SoulCycle. We hear through our, we do an annual engagement survey. Many companies do. We use Culture Amp. And it's clear that culture, but being able to give back in the communities is really important to the people that we're hiring and the people that are, from a retention standpoint, that work for SoulCycle. And so we are looking for people that want to give back and that are going to be and thrive in our cultures, which is why we're front-footed about what the experience of working for SoulCycle is. And plus, we want people to understand that, it's definitely work hard. We want them to understand our values, but it's also fun. You get to ride for free, and you can ride daily if you want. And wearing athleisure around is kind of part of the culture, but there's also hard work, and there's a service aspect of everything we're doing to take care of the communities and one another.
Yeah. Erin, you want to jump in?
Can I build on that for a second?
Please.
Because I am such a huge fan of SoulCycle, and one of the things that I experience is that I feel better, not just physically, but emotionally as a result of that, of my attending SoulCycle. And I don't know that that is something that you can teach someone. I think the technical components that you're describing, you can teach someone how to instruct or how to be at the front door. But the team members that I think that you do such a great job of hiring have this innate quality in them of wanting to create those experiences for people. And I don't know that that's something, I think that's something you have to hire for and not something that you can really train for.
How hard is it to hire for culture? You know, this is something that I think hiring managers think about everywhere, kind of what is the culture of this place? And then does this person in this 1 hour, 2 hour, super day, whatever it is, reflect that culture? But sometimes that can be a little tricky. I'm wondering, so how do you think about hiring for culture?
So obviously we have a standard list of questions that we ask prospective candidates that we are looking to elicit stories or experiences about whether or not they have a values alignment with us. An example of that is, what is the best gift that you have either given or received? And we just want to hear what that type of story is. And in particular, if they're focusing on one that they've given, how much thought did they put into that, and what was the impact on them? But the reality is that sometimes people people know that that's what we're looking for, and so sometimes they will have practiced those types of stories. And so one of the other things that we do is we do what's called a trail, which means that a prospective candidate will spend time in the business for an entire day. And so we have team members as well as managers that are interacting with that person to see whether or not they are consistently demonstrating those values that we've been looking for.
Erin, I want to talk a little bit about how you build culture in a business and kind of in individual businesses where there's so much differentiation in role, right? I think one of the things that we've learned over the past few years as the restaurant industry, as pay, as tipping has kind of come under scrutiny is just how different the restaurant experience can be for somebody who is wait staff or a dishwasher versus a manager or somebody else who has perhaps what would be considered a more white-collar job. How do you take those very disparate jobs and create kind of a uniform culture, both throughout an individual restaurant and then throughout an entire restaurant group?
Great question. So the first is that we have 27 different businesses, and every single one has a microculture, if you will, or a unique personality that we want to see and experience. We don't want to thwart in any way. That said, we have 4, we call them family values, that are consistent and non-negotiables across all of our businesses, and that's kind of the cultural DNA or foundation that we have for all of our colleagues. In terms of the different roles, we hold all of our team members accountable to consistently demonstrating those family values, but with our recent, well, I guess it's 3 years now, elimination of tipping, what we have been able to do is to create a clear and transparent career path for our team members to go from a dishwasher to a general manager with a set of expectations for what they need to understand, what they need to build knowledge and skills and experience around, so they can see what is expected of them in all of the different roles. They can also understand what they could potentially earn at all of the different roles throughout their career progression as well. And that helps for someone that's an entry-level colleague to say, hey, you know, I know what I need to do in order to grow within USHG.
Yeah. Before we continue, I just want to let the audience know we will be coming to you guys for questions in just a few minutes. I have a few more questions of my own. Most of you have heard this before. Keep them short, make sure they're questions, and we will have mic runners in the audience. Adrienne, SoulCycle has been involved and been very vocal about falling on certain sides of issues, both political and social. I'm wondering, how do you guys choose what issues to become involved in?
Thank you. You know, we've had thoughtful conversation around where we think we can actually make the biggest impact, so that we can focus and deliver meaningful value that is representative of the need that we're seeing in our studios. What we want to do right now is we have formed some partnerships, and we have a 3-pronged approach for community impact, and the first one is around mental well-being. And so an example of that is a partnership with the Born This Way Foundation. But writers come to us for an experience of fitness in the room, they come for breakthroughs, and they come for sanctuary and for community. And there's an opportunity there for people to have tremendous connections as humans and with our instructors. Working with Born This Way, we had a Soul Together challenge in October And we were able to, as a community, have 200,000 rides that were very personally motivated for riders' goals that allowed us to reach a goal of contribution to give $100,000 to Born This Way. And that was really around creating a positive conversation around mental well-being, connect young people to the resources and care for early help and for counsel, but also importantly to create safe communities where people can come as they are. And so we were thinking about that in terms of where we felt that we could have something that was signature, that we had authority and knowledge in, and that was really meaningful not only to our riders, but to our employees. And so we were very deliberate around what we wanted to take a stand for as a brand.
Yeah, that actually leads me to a follow-up question on that. How many of the issues that you guys deal with, or when you're thinking about what issues to become involved in, vocal on, is it more top-down or is it bottom-up? To what extent can employees say, this is something I care a lot about, I would love to see SoulCycle kind of take this on?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, one of the things that I love is that Melanie Whelan, our CEO, has taken a very positive and committed stand on bringing corporate social responsibility and impact to life as defined by the partnerships that we are in the signature care for mental health. It also has to be ground up. You know, part of bringing the culture to life, and Erin spoke to this, I think, well, is that we offer Soulteering days, which are volunteer days for all of our community of employees, where they can go out and do something that is a personal cause or a passion that they have. And we will support them in doing so. As well, within our rider communities, they can literally, I'll call it clip in for the cause, where they can use the safe space of the studio to invite a community and put together fundraising and support for something that is meaningful to them and a cause that they would like to support. Mm-hmm. So what I'd say, though, is strategically, the commitment has to be from the top of the organization in order to make that an important part of the culture and to support not only the employees' goals and personal aspirations, as well as the riders and the community to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as we think about corporate culture, I think one of the things that's come up a lot when we think about HR in the last few years has been how companies protect their employees, sometimes protect their employees against other people within an organization. And I think one of the things, as I've reported on this, that has happened a lot, is that HR has come under scrutiny for perhaps not thinking through this or not being innovative enough when it comes to protecting employees, when it comes to listening to employees, and when it comes to dealing with these issues head on. So I want to know how you guys are both thinking about that and thinking about this moment where, I guess, corporate culture is trying to figure out how to both create a culture that is warm and inclusive and welcoming, but also to be protective and listen to employees and deal with some very real and big issues. Erin?
So it's a huge challenge and a huge opportunity that we've been working through. The way that we have been focusing on addressing this, it starts with education. Education for all of our people to understand what's in bounds and what's outside of the bounds. And that means that not only to teach people what they shouldn't be doing, but also what they shouldn't expect to receive in the workplace. So we've been focusing on a ton of training for our frontline colleagues, but then also letting managers know what the expectation is of them when they get any information about someone being made to feel uncomfortable and what that process looks like. We've also opened up a ton of channels to make available to our people where they can share concerns and be more anonymous throughout the process. Ultimately, for us, it is a function, though, of trust. Do our people trust us to do the right thing? And that's what we've also been really working hard to foster, is a higher level of trust in the environment. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah. Adrienne?
I completely agree. It's an important issue, and creating a safe environment, particularly for SoulCycle, as well as Erin's business, where it's a very physical business. It's about education, it's about communication, and a lot of training. And what I'd say is being planful. So if you can work with your employees so that they understand kind of to expect the unexpected or what to do in a pressure situation, they can serve one another and protect the environment for the riders and for themselves in a much more efficient way and in a confident way, which is what we're really trying to have them feel and able to do, is to recognize warning signs when they need to know how to solve a problem, short-term, long-term, and where to go to for help.
Yeah.
I'd add one more thought there, which is with the elimination of tipping, now our people feel more empowered to call out guest behavior that is inappropriate. Whereas before, they would feel more guilty because the entire team would take a financial hit because the guest was deciding what the compensation of our team members were based on their experience. And so by eliminating tipping, we've eliminated that power, and we have started to protect our people more.
Yeah. Let's go to the audience for questions. I think there's one right there.
Thank you again for your comments. Celine Johnson here. I'm a passionate member of Equinox, SoulCycle, and wanted to thank you for, I think it takes one fit person at a time to inspire others. So thank you for what you're doing to your members, but your community. And my question is about the youth market. Wanted to know, if it is in your mission going forward to include and to develop your markets to beyond the adults, but thinking about those teens in the city to kind of guide them towards a healthier, fitter world.
Thank you for the question. It's an important one. SoulCycle definitely wants to ensure that what we are doing through our partnerships with the communities that we are strategically working with, like Born This Way, that we are providing a safe harbor and giving also access to healthcare opportunities for people to come and have a soul, mind, body experience. So we've done things around mentorship programs, scholarship programs, and we are continuing to look for ways to extend access so that people can use the safe haven of the studios to bring their best selves to life.
Yeah, I think we have another question right there.
I don't think it's live.
There we go.
Hi, thank you for your comments today. I'm Holly with Horizon Pharma. I'm curious if you've put any thought into this intersection between the value of diversity of thought on a team while also trying to preserve culture, because sometimes the preservation of the culture can lead to a lot of people who are coming from the same perspective and looking at the situation from the same lens.
Erin, you want to take that?
Sure. So we've been doing a lot of training on culture fit does not mean that this person looks and sounds like you. It has been an ongoing opportunity for us and something that we've been actively addressing. What we have found is that if we are able to include more diversity in the interviewing process, that alone is a step in the right direction in terms of including more people in the process and different backgrounds, experiences, races, ethnicity, gender, and that is already starting to help a little bit with our process.
All right, everyone, please join me in thanking Erin and Adrienne.